Here is an example of what you're going to see throughout the presentation today. Pretty much all of the slides will look like this. You can see what the title of the release feature is, followed by the release number and month. So this means that you have to be on this release number for your JCM or GEM in order to have access to the feature. Besides that, it also shows you where you could find a feature in the software. We've also provided the description of the release itself, and you can find a photo to show you what the new feature looks like, and a link to the YouTube tutorial video on the bottom left of the slide if applicable. And with that said, thank you so much again, and I'm going to pass it over to Corey, who's going to start off with what's new in Jonas Club Management.
Thanks, Roleta. Hi, everyone. This is Corey Reed here, and I'm going to take you through Jonas Club Management, what's new in Q1 and Q2 of 2023. So first off, just in the general section here, the first item we have to go over is an enhancement to a few of our menus throughout the software. Just trying to make things more consistent here. A couple of the programs throughout the system you would notice have some inconsistencies with the preview and update button specifically. So this enhancement here has made that more consistent throughout the software, where everything is now, we're working on being able to create that consistency on the right side of the screen you see here, where we have the preview and update button at the bottom right, as opposed to the toggle icons you see on the left throughout some programs throughout the system. Next up, we're just going to go through a few new menus that have been created throughout the system. The first item here, done in February, is in Club Management Processing under the Cash Receipts program. What this is a brand new program to be able to post online payments. There's two parts to this. The first is actually just a program to post the online payments that you see on the right. Also has an option to show outstanding payments if you wanted to view that before posting. The option on the left is actually a setup that you can do to choose how to handle surcharges. So for those of you clubs out there that post a surcharge for credit cards, so say like a 2 or 3% convenience fee, as you might call it, for your credit card payments, this allows you to choose how those are handled. You can either do one of two options. You can either just post a general ledger entry just for the credit and debit, or you can actually post a charge and the credit against the member's account. So if you actually want that to show in the member's history as far as a charge goes, you would use the bottom option. Otherwise, you can go straight to the general ledger just to record the revenue for it. Next up, we have a brand new program here called Reverse Club Member Postings. This is a program that many clubs asked for, basically to fix mistakes, if you will. So various programs in club management, now we can take a batch or even individual charges from a batch and actually reverse them. Or you could also post a new charge on a new date. So for example, if you just made a simple mistake of charging something on the wrong date, you can actually use this program to essentially reverse it and then post a new charge on that new date. Basically, you would go to Club Management, go to Processing, and go to Reverse Club Management Postings. Once you're in that program, it'll let you pull up an audit number from a past charge or past batch. The first thing you would do here that you see on the right is actually choose to reverse that posting, and then you have the option to hide that reversal from the member statement, which you see here. So if you wanted that member to see the in and out, you would actually not hide it. Otherwise, if you want the member to not even see if it was there at all, you would choose to hide it. Secondly, the option here to create a new posting, that's the example I mentioned, where you can actually choose to post it on a new date of record. Once you have chosen those parameters, you would click Next at the bottom right, and that'll walk you to the next tab to reverse the posting, where you can see the entire batch of charges that is there able to be reversed. And on that screen, you can actually choose whether you want to reverse all the charges. So if there are multiple members involved with that batch, you could choose all of them, or you can select individual members out of that batch. So if there was just one member involved you want to fix, you could actually just toggle that one member. Next, you would go to the tab for new posting, and that's only if you check this box to do a new posting with a new date of record. Otherwise, if you did not check that option, you would simply click post, and that would post the reversal. But if you did choose to do a new posting, you would click next, go to that tab, and now you would choose to do a posting for the new posting with a new date of record. Next enhancement here is for mobile POS. So for any of you clubs that have used our mobile POS module, you've probably realized there are some features that are actually not supported. Some of the more advanced features, like maybe course lines or different things like that, like splitting checks, any kind of button like that might not be supported yet to date with kind of our V1 of mobile point of sale, if you will. So this program that we've added here is actually a specific setup program for the mobile POS. So this allows you to go into a full menu design program to build your menus for POS, or for mobile POS, I should say. And that actually will filter all of the available options to only options that are supported by mobile POS. So it makes it nice and easy if you wanted to build a brand new screen for your mobile POS. And that way you don't have to worry about what's supported, what's not supported. This only shows items that are supported by mobile POS. Next up, we've got a new program that will actually kind of let you analyze your POS system from a mobile POS perspective to see what is currently supported and what is not supported. So if you are having trouble figuring out why a certain button might not be coming over to your mobile POS, for example, this program will let you see all of your existing menu setups and whether they are supported or not. So the top part of the screen would show the items that are excluded from mobile POS, and then the reason it's excluded from the mobile POS. And then the bottom of the screen will actually show you the items that are good and that will be included for your mobile POS. So a nice handy feature here if you're troubleshooting your mobile POS menus. You could come here to see why an item might not be coming over in its current state. So next up, we've got a new program for editing additional email addresses. So for those members that might have multiple email addresses on file, we all know there's options you can choose, like whether they get a statement, whether they get tea time confirmations or payment confirmations, different options like that. This screen will let you make edits to those additional email addresses in bulk. So for example, if you want to turn off all tea time emails, for example, or turn on all tea time email confirmations, then you could go to the screen and actually change a massive list of members in bulk. There are also right-click options on the screen, so you could right-click and select all, or right-click and deselect all. So for that example I threw out there of turning everybody on for tea time confirmations, in the past you might have to go through member by member, or even probably do like a batch file upload, for example. This screen will let you easily manage those settings for your additional email addresses. So now diving into accounts payable, a few enhancements here. First one we have is to the quick bank reconciliation program. This enhancement was done in May of 2023. It's now a feature where as you reconcile checks, they will actually be highlighted in yellow on the screen. So it gives you a nice visual of all the checks that you've actually reconciled in this batch so far, rather than just the Y that you would typically see on the left in the past. Now you can see each row highlighted in yellow. So next up, a big one that a lot of clubs asked for was the ability to do a longer invoice number. So we call this an alternate invoice number. So if you have vendors that send you an invoice number that was more than 10 digits in the past, you were kind of limited to that 10 digits and might have to use the last 10 digits, for example. Now we give you the ability to turn on what's called an alternate invoice number. So it is an option you would have to turn on in your subledger setup, and then it'll let you define what the number or the length is of that invoice number up to 20 characters. And just a little bit more on that enhancement. If you are going to turn that on, the first step, as I mentioned, is to turn that on in your subledger setup, which is in accounts payable, under files, under subledger setup. The second step would be to pick and choose which vendors that gets activated for. So it doesn't get activated for every vendor by default, because you may only have a couple or a handful of vendors that send you a long invoice number like that. So in this case, you would go to your supplier setup and actually turn that on for your particular suppliers. And then that'll activate this feature you see on the right. As you're entering the invoices, you'll be able to assign an alternate invoice number up to 20 characters. And just a little bit more on that, you can see here, that is also an option that will print on your audit trails on the reports. As you can see on the left, it shows that alternate invoice number, and this is supported by the configurable check design as well. And also on the right, you can see that is a field we've added to the club report generator so that you could run a report on those detailed alternate invoice numbers. So next up, we've got an option here for the transfer posted invoices and transfer posted invoices to payment accounts and to reverse transfer payment account invoices. The feature here is just that we now store their audit trails from those two programs in our document management program. Whereas in the past, they did not get captured in this program, so now they will be included, and it's under the type of audits. Now moving into banquet and catering. First up, we have an option here on the system profile of banquet and catering. You have the option to flag this feature that's called for double booking color display, ignore canceled rooms. So what that means is if you have any canceled room statuses, for example, that will not be considered in that logic for double booking. So in the past, you might have a room booked for a future event, and then there was also that same room booked for a canceled event, and it would actually show as a double booking because there were technically 2 bookings on it. Now it'll actually ignore that for the color display, so it will not consider that a double booking. Just to show more about where that is in the system, if you're not aware, this is on the left where you would set up a room status code, so that's under Banquet Catering Files, Room Status Codes. You would create that canceled status. Then on the right, you can see in the booking details of a banquet, you would flag that particular room or detail about the event as canceled, and then that would now again no longer show up in that logic for the color scheme of double bookings. So next up, another enhancement to Banquet Catering. Now in the settlement billing report, with the report option of the deposit report, we now give the option to show the booking start date as a particular column, both in the print and export function. Just to show that feature here on the right, you can see that's where the start date would show up in the details of the event. And on the left, you have the deposits report that shows that new column with the start date. So that would be useful to see the event's date and when that might be coming up in the future. So moving into club inventory here. Now we've got an option here added to the detailed sales report. So you've probably noticed a lot of our reports throughout. We've been adding the option to be able to export a really nice, clean Excel export. And with those exports, you actually get to pick and choose the columns you want to export. And what we've added here is just simply the option to add the inventory items retail selling price and the member selling price. So now those are options you can select for those to export those columns on this particular report. So next up, we've got an option or enhancement here to print count sheets program in inventory. And what we've done here is the ability to actually restrict displaying the quantity on hand. So this is actually a user security permission. You can go to certain users or user groups and tell it that they cannot print a count sheet with a quantity on hand. So this is for you clubs out there that might want your staff doing a blind count, as you might call it, where they're simply just counting the items and they have no idea what it should be. For security reasons, you might want them doing that blind count. This allows you to go take away their ability to actually see the quantity on hand while printing that count sheet for particular users. Next up, moving into club management. First thing we have here is an option we've added to the club report generator. It's just a new code that we've added, JDA, which is for the time a sales item was entered on a chit. So as opposed to the past where we strictly had the time the chit was entered, now we have actually the time that a sales item was entered, and that option could be added to a club report gen design. Next up, for those of you out there that might use our record club invoices program, just a handy little shortcut we've added here. So while in the member account inquiry or history account inquiry, we've given you the ability to jump right into record club invoices. So if you're looking at a member's statement in your system, you can dive right into recording a club invoice for them using the new button at the bottom right of these screens. So next up, we've got an option here for setup edit members. So what this option does is it actually now defaults new members to getting an emailed statement. So we realize a lot more clubs are going to emailed statements as opposed to printing statements. It's much easier, saves a lot of paper, saves a lot of money on the club. So what we've done here is actually have new members always default to emailed statements, assuming you've put a valid email address in on their account. If you do not put an email address on their account when you're setting them up, it'll actually toggle them back to printed automatically. So something you might want to pay attention to if your club does not email statements, we're going to have to pay attention here and make sure that they get set up for a printed statement if you do put an email address on file for them. So next up along the lines of emails, this option is specifically for the club shares program. In the program for the list of club shares, we've now given you the ability to export the member's main email address. So similar to the option discussed earlier with club inventory where we added the retail price and member price, similar logic here where now in this export for club shares, the list of shares, we've given you the ability to export the member's main email address on that export. So next up, we've got an enhancement to gift certificates. Using the export option for the gift certificate status report in club management, you now have the ability to export the gift certificate description. So if you put any kind of special description on a gift certificate, like maybe happy birthday or first place club championship, something along those lines, you now have the ability to export that gift certificate description in the gift certificate status report. Next up, a minor enhancement here to our interface for Jonas POS to third-party PMS. So if any of you guys have hotel rooms or cottages or anything like that where you use a third-party PMS system, like maybe Opera or something along those lines, Fidelio, we now have the option to actually run that interface as a service. In the past, you always pretty much had to have that program up and running on your server at all times. If you rebooted your server, you'd have to make sure to restart that program. You can now run that program as a service, which essentially means it'll run in the background in Windows. So if you're interested in that, just let us know. We can help you set that up. Next up, an option to integrated cash receipts. We've done an enhancement here to actually separate multiple on-account payments for the same day. So if you're not familiar with what an on-account payment is, it's basically like a floating credit on a member's account. Maybe it didn't have a charge to apply to at the time. So there's basically one row that says on account and then has a balance on it. The enhancement we've done here is actually to display multiple lines for the same day, whereas in the past it would actually default to summarizing that total per day. So if you wanted to turn this on, that's under Club Management, Club Setup, Basic Club Profiles under the Options tab on the right. So next up, we've done a new program here for the Members First interface. So we now have an interface for member photos specifically. So if you load member photos into your Jonas Club Management system, we can now have that sync to your Members First website for those of you that are a Members First website customer. If you are interested in this program, you just need to reach out to your sales rep at Jonas and they can get this module added for you. And then we can work with the Members First team to actually turn on this API interface here to actually start syncing your member photos from Jonas to the Members First website. Next up, we've got a new report generator here, new code to the club report generator, code JAIA, and it's for showing the reciprocal member names. So for those of you clubs that run reciprocal charges through Club Management, or actually through point of sale, I should say, then you end up sending a bill back to their home club. You typically probably have to put a note or description or the member's name on the POS chit to tell them who the member is, what their member number is, for example. So that description of that reciprocal member name can now be exported in the Club Management report generator. So next up, we've got an option for our configurable member statement. The option is called Override Reference Field with Invoice Number. So this is for clubs using the club invoicing program. You can now show that invoice number on their member statement as opposed to the reference. Also, if you're using this program for POS chits, it will now actually print the last 6 digits of the POS chit as opposed to the reference as well. So next up, we've got an enhancement to the report generator A27 code, which is actually the years members have belonged. So if you're looking for a report that shows how many years a member has been at the club, we always had this field in the past, but the change here is to do a new format using the C1 option. And that'll actually show the years in decimals as opposed to just rounding to a whole number like it did in the past with option D1. Next up, Club Automation. We've got some more reports added. So for those of you using Club Automation, this is where you can automate some of your reports, maybe to send out or email to the managers at the end of the night, for example. So we've added quite a few reports to that Club Automation program, specifically the sales by item report, the F&B revenue analysis, and then the F&B daily revenue analysis summary as well. Now we're getting into member account inquiries as far as tea times go. In the member account inquiry on the tea times tab, when you're inquiring on that particular member's tea time reservations, we've now updated this screen to allow for sortable columns. So for example, if you wanted to quickly sort by the most recent tea time by date, you can click on those columns and actually resort this grid in the member inquiry under the tea times tab. Next up, a couple enhancements to pre-authorized payments, which is PAP as we refer to it here in the Jonas world. We've done an enhancement here to allow you to override the maximum and minimum amounts tab per member and to override it for a specific date range. So in the past, you always had to actually put a maximum or minimum, and then if you wanted to change it in the future, you would have to actually come back and change it on that date. Now, if you know a specific date range that you want to override that maximum and minimum amount for their pre-authorized payment agreement, you can do so and using the amount override setup button at the top right. This particular slide is showing it for bank PAPs. And then next, we also did that same exact enhancement for credit card PAPs as well. So the same exact option, you'll just have this under the credit card option. So that brings us into general ledger. For this option, I'm actually going to hand it off to Nolan, and he's going to take you through the next steps here with the next few slides.
Thank you, Corey. So starting off with general ledger, we have our fixed assets program where we've updated the grid screens to give you some options. So if you wanted to look up a certain type or update a field, you have some selection choices for looking at the calendar, or for instance, giving you a type option of searching for these options, just updating these grid views for you. Next, we have an update to the general ledger drill downs on the member charge details. So with the addition of the reversing of charges option, we can now provide GL account drill downs for specific club charges. So you can see in the picture on the right-hand side, it's displaying the member's information on the posting with related to the charge that's on my general ledger account inquiry. Again, within the account inquiry section, we can also do a revenue account drill down now. So because of the new interface, again, we now are able to see which member and their name, member number, and name, and any of our point of sale end of day update programs. So it's going to display all the member transactions in that point of sale end of day update. So you can see here for my food and beverage area, I got a $10 charge, and it's going to display the members that were in that point of sale end of day update. We've now added some adjustments to the recurring journal entries program, where we are now able to add documents to those recurring journal entries. So right below in the screenshot here, you can now see that you have the option to add documents or add by task. And if you do have the advanced document management module, you can use the scanner as well to scan documents and attach them into the posting. So very similar to the last update, we now have the same ability in the post-recurring journal entries program, where you can go and add in documents and add by task, same kind of section on the right-hand side. And same functionality with the advanced document management program, where if you have your scanner, you can scan documents to them as well. We do have a new feature to our detailed general ledger. So if you're running this report, you now have the ability to choose to suppress those accounts that have no transactional activity or a zero ending balance, or both from that report. So as you can see in the drop-down field down low here, you have the no activity, zero ending balance, both no activity and zero ending balance. So if you don't want to see those transactions on that report, you can exclude them. Next, we're going to jump into Canadian Payroll. And so for those clubs using Canadian Payroll, you now have an enhancement to the terminate and rehire employees lookup screen. So both the terminated employees ROE and the rehire employees program have been improved to give you the option to basically use your F2 lookup screen. Instead of just selecting F2 on your keyboard, you can now select the icon there, and it will bring you up to your search screens for you. For the US payroll, we have enhanced the quarterly tax report for the unemployment filing. So now there's going to be some options to submit state unemployment details via an electronic file format for states of Idaho and Nevada. So if you are in those two states, you have the option to select Idaho or Nevada for your two options there. Moving on to point of sale. So our first enhancement with point of sale is the report cash summary settlement reporting detail. So with the report cash summary report, it now has a new option to break down settlements in detail by chip using the settlement reporting codes. So you can see here you have settlement reporting codes. Now you can increase that settlement reporting code detail and view it by chip. So you can see down the bottom right hand of the screen in the payment description, it's going to include the button description is within the brackets, and that can be used when a settlement report code is not attached to the settlement of the settlement button. So just an additional enhancement to that cash summary report. We do have a new feature within the Design Your Own Form program within point of sale. So within this Design Your Own Forms element has been added to include the chip footer options within your screen. So you can see here the reason code user entered description element can print the freeform comment added on the reason code. So if you're at a point of sale and you enter in a reason code that's manual, you can now choose to include that on your point of sale chip forms by using the screen here, reason code user entered description onto your footer of your chip. We have another new feature within point of sale for fired courses. So clubs that do want to show some more detail with regards to when courses are fired, you now have the ability to add in that option onto your specific sales areas. So you can see here in the bottom left-hand corner, if I do fire a course, it's now going to show me the time that the course was fired. So you can see the CF at 1:28 p.m. And if you wanted to enable that function on your own system, you just need to go into point of sale, system setup, system parameters, and then within there you can go to your setup areas. And right here you have the show sent / printed info. So after you select your specific sales area, you'll be able to go in and change that to the sent time, sent with time, and course fired time. We have an enhancement to the report sales by chip member user information. So there's going to be 2 new columns available in for export to Excel in the sales and revenue report. You can now select the user ID and user name to appear in the column selected on a detailed report. So as Corey was mentioned before, when you're going through that export option on specific reports, you can now select that columns choice, and right down here you have the user code and username option to include it by. There's also some additional print by options for item detail with ship date and time, and then category item detail. So that can be selected right down here at the bottom. Another update to one of our sales reports. This one is going to be a really handy feature, but anytime that you run a point of sale sales report in the system and maybe you've placed conditions on it, and with those conditions, it did not generate any information or you had no results with your conditions. Now when you run that report, it will actually give you it will provide you with a report that's going to show you that there was no detail. Whereas previously what would happen is you would select run and then it just wouldn't provide you with any information on the report as if nothing happened. Now it's going to actually generate the report, but it will still not provide any detail, but you'll at least have an idea of whether your report ran properly and give you an idea if you need to just go in and change your conditions. The next item we have here is an update to the third-party tea time reservation process improvement. So the interface on the point of sale chip screen with third-party tea time reservation processor that some clubs might be using, you now have the ability to select all players listed on the reservation versus the previous practice of selecting individual lines. So you can also select to have chits created all auto member charged, like in the close all member chits function. So right down here, if you go to pick up tea time reservations, then on the right-hand side, you have the choice of selecting all, auto member charge and close, or auto member charge, close, and print if you need to. The next option that we have here is the design your own forms. Again, another update to this program. This one, you'll be able to design in the new element of the form. You have the option to add in the extra gratuity description element, which will print whatever terminology you have assigned to your SM4 gratuity function button. So if instead of gratuity or extra gratuity, you're using tip, whatever that option may be, you now have the option of adding in the specific description that you're using for that SM4 function. So if you ever want to include that, you can go into point of sale system setup, design your own forms, and in the chip design section, you'll be able to select extra gratuity description here, and you can add it onto the footer of your chip design. Our next update that we have here is the chip history function. So full chip display. The chip history function in the point of sale will now be able to display the full contents of the archived chip when you're in your point of sale menu design screen. So this ensures that no items are missed on the point of sale chip. You're going to see the entire chip that they had from their history. And then now chip history can also be accessed via start a new chip program, or start a new chip screen, prior to starting the chip and selecting the other options button in the top toolbar. So before you select the member, you'll see other options up in your top toolbar, and then from there you can see the chip history option there, and it will provide you with your full chip detail. We do have a new update for Shift4 card processing. So for any clubs that are using Shift4 as their credit card provider, you now have the ability of specific user IDs to be able to avoid manually enter extra gratuity on a chip. So any chip that's settled with the Shift4 credit card processor can now go in and void out the actual extra gratuity on the chip. So user IDs can be authorized to perform this void through user administration, point of sale access. And then there's going to be your choice there to allow Shift4 extra gratuity void down at the bottom. Next, we're going to move on to our mobile point of sale. And with mobile point of sale, we have a new update to our chip printing. So a new setting on the point of sale terminal setup screen is going to allow you to control chip printing. This chip printing field allows you to determine if chips created on the mobile point of sale will be printed by the device or sent to a network printer style when the print chip button is selected. So you can see there's the drop-down option over here that gives you the ability to select network printer instead of the mobile POS app printer option before. Next up, with the mobile point of sale, there's more functions added. So mobile point of sale can now support menus on tablets that include the function buttons of message to kitchen, NA for the not applicable options, and the hidden buttons. So before you could not use any one of those function options on your point of sale menu screens. Now you can use those and it won't give you any issues with bringing that up into the mobile point of sale screen. We do have a new feature again for mobile point of sale with regards to the Stripe credit card receipts. So similar to our other chip printing option, but chips settled to the Stripe credit card processor on mobile point of sale devices can now have their credit card receipts printed either to the mobile point of sale device printer, or you can select a network printer. So similar option to that previous screen, but now this is specifically for those Stripe setups where you can pick and choose the network printer that you're going to be selecting. Another update to the mobile point of sale, we now have the zero price items prompt. So the ability of the mobile point of sale to prompt for a selling price of zero price sales items has been added onto the system. Another add-on to the mobile point of sale is the seat number assignments. It's now possible for us to assign or change the seat numbers on chips. As an example, so if you have a member sitting at seat 1 and you want to change them over to seat 2, you can do so. And you can now switch in between the different seat options available for you at mobile point of sale. Moving on to Marina Management. This is our first enhancement with Marina Management is just we now updated the capture vessel data to ASCII for more fields. So now we can now capture members' email address, business email address, and date of birth in the file created with this program. So for any clubs using that Marina Management report, here you can now include those new fields in your report. So within Tea Time Management, we have a couple of new options in the system. So first off being the Tea Time Reservation Export. So we've now added in 2 new fields into the Tea Time Reservation Export. There's the desired variance in minutes. So the difference between the tea time asked from a lottery request and the tea time assigned at a lottery update. And then the other one is the original variance in minutes, the difference between the original tea time asked or assigned by the lottery update and the actual tea time. This will only have a value if the tea time is moved after the lottery update. So you can see there's those 2 new fields down here. If you're using lottery, then you can add these into any tea time report that you're going through. Another new feature that was added in for tea times with regards to golfer classifications, we can now activate or make them inactive if needed. So if you have a golfer classification that is a little bit older, you now have the ability to make it inactive in its status. So as you can see here up at the top of the screen, you have an active and inactive option. This will hide it from your F2 lookups, and you can toggle it to see which ones on your lookup screens you'll be able to toggle between your active and inactive options there. I'm sorry, I should mention, you do have to select the option screen first before you get to the golfer classification status. But the next option that we have within our system for tea time management is the mass player checking feature. So this feature has been created for clubs that don't check in their tea time reservation until the end of the day. This mass player check-in process is having to check in each reservation line by line. Now it's going to allow you to check in each reservation, member charge, and close the point of sale chip that was created. This is done with a new end of day button added to the main tea time reservations tea sheet screen. And you can see once we actually get into the program, this button is only enabled for open tea sheets that are on today's date or earlier. So you can't do anything for future dates. Green selling lines are indicated that they're good for checking. Red lines are indicated that there's maybe an issue with them. if charging for rounds played on a club's tea time management system, those items will have to go through the point of sale system, chip processing, starting with chip in that case for those items. So I'll give you a quick demo on this program because I think this one's going to be really helpful for clubs. My system is set up that I have to charge my members for rounds. So I do have to go through the point of sale system and into chip processing, start a new chip. And then I can go to my tea time management program over here. When I go into my current tea sheet, it's a little bit quiet in the afternoon, but I did have some tea times in the beginning of the day. So now I can hit the end of day option and I get this screen here that's going to display all of the chips that I can put at one time. So if I didn't want to check in any specific one, I can change their booking status just to leave as open. And then it will only check in the individuals that are listed as check-in here. But for this instance, I'm going to make sure I have all of these accounts selected. I would hit process selected players. And from there, it's going to create 10 check-ins for me, and I'm going to go ahead and proceed. Perfect. And then once that's finished, it's going to go ahead and print to your terminal setup that you have in your system. So it's definitely a handy feature for those clubs that want to do a check-in at the end of the day. It's going to member charge everything. So if you're going to have a guest on your screen and then maybe the member would be charging for that guest. If you want the guests to pay for themselves, you'd want to maybe check off those individuals and make sure that they're left as open so you're not checking them on the screen. But from there, if I go back up to the top of my screen, now you can see that all of these ones have been updated with the check-in field, and they were walking and do some cart ones. Anyone that was paid is indicated with the paid. So Miss Julia in here paid for her guests that she had with her. So that's just a really handy feature that you can go through and use if you're a club that's looking to use that. So our next option that we have is the player chip preparation for check-in players. This tea time player chip preparation screen has now introduced a new button to allow you to control which point of sale items are going to be transferred to the main player. So previously there was an option there that just said transfer items to all players, and it would move all point of sales items associated with each player on the reservation to the main player, regardless of check-in status. This new button has now been renamed so that it's point of sale items from all players. And to only have items transferred from check-in players, use the point of sale items from players selected for check-in. So you can see now there's the two new buttons. This was our previous option, which just transferred everything to this one individual. And now you have the option to transfer the point of sale items from selected check-in players. So you have to check them off first and then transfer. So right now, based on this example, if I select this button, it would only transfer these items from the player that's indicated to check-in. So if I wanted to transfer everyone, then I would also just list the check-in option on those two. For our next option with Clubhouse Online and public tea time bookings, an adjustment was made to the web service program for public bookings. So if a phone number is received during the tea time booking process, this data is now placed into the cell phone field instead of the home phone field. So you can see here, it's going to update cell phone now instead of home phone. Moving on to Timekeeper. So within Timekeeper and scheduling emails, built-in schedules for email, you now have the ability to add emails for all employees in the build schedule screen to send them their schedules for the month or week or whatever time frame you're looking for. So when going into the build schedule screen, you can go into the address option, select the email that you're going to be using, and you can email addresses for the employees. They must be set up in the address section there. In order to set up this email option, you do need to go into your Gmail parameters and update the new form type that's in the system for Timekeeper staff schedules. So going into Gmail parameters over here and making sure you have this form type selected for Timekeeper staff scheduling. Our next option that we have an update for is the Shift Manager program. So in 2023, clubs using the Shift Manager product, the Timekeeper Shift module, will be transitioning to a makeshift product. The Shift Manager was built on the makeshift engine originally, and this transition process will allow clubs to take advantage of more frequent enhancements made to the product with the makeshift team. To prepare for that transition, all references to Shift Manager will be changed to makeshift. There's no different functionality changes, so everything's still going to work the same way for any existing clients. But with any existing clients until they're migrated over to the makeshift product. And then at that point, there's going to be a new URL required of the profile. New option in the maintain time data, we now have the option for a zero pay rate warning. So if you do not store or track pay rates in your timekeeper system, and you don't want to show any pay rates, you can now choose to remove the zero pay rate warning on your profile settings. So just down here at the bottom of my screen, you have the option in your system profile for do not display zero pay rate warning. And with that, that's everything on the Jonas Club Management side. I'm going to pass it over to Rob Lamanna to go over Jonas Activity Management.
So yeah, as Nolan mentioned, my name is Robert Lamanna. I'm product manager for Jonas Activity Management. We'll be going through what's new in the first 2 quarters of this year, starting with activity tracking. So activity tracking is a module we use that allows members to either self-check in or the club to check them in, sort of just track their activity at the club, for lack of a better term, and where they've gone. Within that, we added a feature where clubs could display in particular areas which members are in a particular area at a given time. So the club that we built this for actually used it in their gym to see who else was there at the gym. And what we've done is we've created a way to launch the program directly into member display. So if a dedicated workstation exists wherein you're going to be displaying this on a television screen or something, a large monitor in a particular area, you can have the program automatically launch into member display so that every time the machine is turned on, automatically it'll show that member display for that particular area. So within here, it just shows all the various configuration options that need to be set in order for that to behave that way. But just be aware that if you are using activity tracking and you want to display which members are in a particular area for the people that are there to see who else is there, it's possible, and you can automatically launch into that mode. Within dining reservations, we made a fairly large enhancement, which we'll call the walk-in waiting list. So this allows clubs to create waiting list requests for people that walk in at a given time. So they come in, there isn't a table currently available, but you have the ability to then take a waiting list request, which will then notify you that there is, you, the back office user, that there is now a table available to satisfy it. And then once you do assign that request to a particular table, it will then communicate out to the individuals that have made the request that there's a table now ready for them. So the most common scenario is I walk into the dining room at the club. I'm looking for a party of 4 at 7 o'clock. There's nothing currently available, but something may come available. And the club now has the ability to take that request and then communicate with you when the table's ready. So similar to if you sent them off to sit at the bar and wait for a table, you could then notify them via email, push notification, or SMS, depending on what's available. So in here, it just shows you within dining settings where you're going to actually check the flag to enable it. And once enabled, you can set up the notifications that are going to go out and by what method. So like I said, it's email, push, and or SMS. In the push notification case, you need to be using the one of our Clubhouse Online mobile apps. And in the text messaging scenario, you need to have the SMS scenario, you need the text messaging module with Jonas in order for us to send that. So once you've set up your notifications and which methods you're going to use, actual usage of the software sort of flows like this. The person walks in, you're going to click that create waiting list button. You're going to create a waiting list for a particular date with a particular start time and an end time. So if someone comes in at 6 o'clock and says, I'm looking for a reservation now, and you say, I don't have any tables right now, but I can make a waiting list request, and should something come available, we can assign it to you. How long are you willing to wait? So if they're not willing to wait more than an hour, let's say, then anything that comes available between 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock would be assigned to them. Otherwise, they won't be considered for anything that comes available later than that. So when a table becomes available, or a wait list that can be assigned to a table that is availability is materialized for, this assign wait list button is going to flash green, as you can see here in the image. When you click on that assign wait list button, it's going to take you to a screen where it's going to show you all the tables available and the reservations that can be assigned. So in this particular instance, there are 5 tables that can be assigned to Roger Smith. 5 magically became available. And I can just click on assign, and doing so will launch the reservation screen with Roger Smith, the appropriate table, the party size specified, all created for you. And all you do is confirm the reservation, and that will trigger the notification out to the client. This works sort of in both modes, even if you're not. This can happen immediately after taking a waiting list request. So if you don't want to look through what's available, you can create a waiting list request for somebody, and upon saving it, it's going to return you to that screen, and potentially the assign waitlist button could flash if there was a table that could accommodate their reservation at that particular time. So it can work both as a waiting list for after the fact assignment and as well for a search tool for you to use. So like I said, once you click assign, you get into the reservation screen. All the information based off the waiting list request is going to be prepended. So, facility, meal period, date, time, party size, the table that's going to be assigned, all will be prepended for you, and all you need to do is save and close, and that will trigger off the notification. So like I said, much like a popular restaurant that's very busy at a particular time, you may get a pager that you take with you, and then you go to the bar and await that pager to go off. The pager you have is the phone that's already in your pocket, and we'll send you that notification by any or all of those methods specified depending on what your club supports and what the member has access to. Moving on to event management, as part of our ongoing project to make our email confirmations more readable for users that are viewing them on mobile phones, we now have responsive email notifications for event management. In the past year, we've created these for court booking and for dining reservations, and now it's been extended to event management as well. So again, very configurable by someone at the club. Again, unlike what we had previously with our form designer, this is a very simple form designer with some limitations, but generally speaking, very well received by people that have used it, in that you can insert an image using a URL. So oftentimes what we recommend is just grab the URL from your website where your club's logo resides, and you can paste that into that field there. You can control that title section. You can control the opening statement section. You cannot control that body data section. That is the data that we're pulling from the reservation itself. So that'll be hard coded by us. The same goes for the extra info. So if you're collecting registered extra info on a given event, we will display it. That goes to things like meal choices and preferences for various things that we're going to ask of the individual registrants. That information again is coming from the registrations itself. And finally, there's the closing statement section again, where you can mention any kind of follow-ups that people need to make if they need to contact somebody. That's information you can configure as well. So in short, you can take your existing form, you can duplicate it, you can use the responsive designer and create a responsive confirmation. This goes for confirmations, reminders, cancellations, event updates, and event cancellations as well, all of which can be made into responsive forms. Onto court booking, what we've done is it's just really a correction within the create edit booking screen, wherein now you can see the upcoming bookings for the selected player. So previously it was always showing the upcoming bookings for the first player on the booking. And in this case, there's two players on it, Stephen Jones and Robert Carey. And previously you could only see the upcoming bookings for Stephen Jones, who's in that first position. Now, depending on which row is selected in the players on a given booking, the upcoming bookings will show down at bottom right.